Hello everyone, Zishtabra here. I decided to do a review about Surf and Turf. I in fact recorded this video long before I even took my vacation, since I actually saw one of the videos that about this episode was leaked. So I had already some remembers about this episode. So if you wonder why I recorded this and since I'm on vacation, well, this episode was very much surprising, since we saw Silver Stream as a sea pony and a hippogriff in the two first episodes. Then the question is, will we see other sea ponies or hippogriffs like Queen Novo or Skystar? But when we see that Twilight and the Cutie Mark Crusaders, somehow they have been summoned to Mount Eris. Well, except for Twilight, she was being there to get some sign from Silverstream's parents for the school trip. But to see Cutie Mark Crusaders being part of the Cutie map, I would say, was actually quite interesting, since their staff made that part just perfectly. And even to hear more about the defeat about from the movie from the Storm King in it. From all of this from the movie itself, part from this season 8, we will have to see more about the hippogriff's culture, and even to see that a new train, a railroad, has been put in from Ponyville to Mount Eris in the Hippogriff Kingdom. That was actually something that had us very much impressed, since that Storm King was defeated, and since the Hippogriffs could now return back to reclaim their mountains, their former home. But then we found out exactly how the sea ponies, or at least Silverstream, could be able to return to her sea pony form and since to back to Hippogriff. It seems the magic pearl from the movie was split in pieces throughout the kingdom, to those who wanted to be part as a hippogriff and go back as a sea pony. And that most of the sea pony, or well, hippogriffs had returned back to their former home and tried to rebuild it. And even Twilight said to Skybeak that since the last time she was in the kingdom, their hometown was just abandoned like a ghost town, but now it was full of life. And even when the Cutie Mark Crusader asked Twilight, how will they find this pony who had this friendship problem? Well, in this case, it was not exactly friendship what I could notice of. But it was some part of friendship. When they met, well, they were quite even to see it. For most of the story of this episode was very much, well, happened very surprising. I mean, even all of this episode was very touching and it was very awesome. Even most of this, well, very much, very unusually from the previous episodes. And even from season 8, season 6, and even from the first season. For many of these episodes so far, we have seen just a little bit unusually. And even Terramar, who is Silverstream's brother, it seems after he even explained all about what happened since the sea ponies now remained in the sea Equestria with the pearl of, from King Novo. And even the song between the Cutie Mark Crusaders, how to determine which world Terramar would fit in. either see Equestria or in the Hippogriff Kingdom. They found out he was the one who has been called by the map. Then I wonder, what would happen if he had decided to remain in Sea Equestria? And I can almost think how he feels about this being hard decide between to live in Sea Equestria or in the Hippogriff Kingdom of Mount Eris. Well, since the Cutie Marker status tried to at least help him, but all their attempts to decide was which side of the place to live was better, either the sea or on the ground. And even to see Skulalu was so very much happy and excited to be in the ocean. It was like she was able to fly, but even in water. And even to see that they both were, all the three were trying to help Terramar decide where to live, where he would fit in most. Even to see that Skulalu and Sweetie Belle was arguing about this. I mean, I can understand which they think what would be best for Terramar. But since they even had to say, they both had both good and negative part of what they say. Some of their claims that the land would be better, or the sea would be better. Some parts of that could be great. Some part of it was actually good points, but some others, but tried to force Terramar to even decide to put his decision. But then they realized they were made it wrong. But then, for most of the story itself, from this episode about his life decision, after his parents was told about this, he finally saw that the Cutie Marsh Crusaders had actually gathered sea ponies and hippogriffs on a beach for a party where since both parts of the groups could enjoy each other's company, even they decided to live either in two worlds. And he could see that Skybeak and the Ocean Floor, his mother and his father talking, and they realized they couldn't even force him to stay with either his father or his mother for all time. That he could still go back and forward even then. So I can understand how much anger, or perhaps not anger, but almost hard to decide which part of the world he would live in. I could understand that most of the story was that. It's something that might be possible. But then I can understand his a bit anger since the Cutie Marker Crusaders tried to force him to decide which part of the world to live in. That he was a little bit angry at them. But he forgave them to the end, and they both even realized, and this was not point to well, they were not even, it was not point for to at least to do all of this. To force some pony to decide which part of the world he would live in, since they had helped so many other fillies and colts to get their cutie marks, and since they get their own. But this was an unusually one another. Since many others have decided that they can't even force. It's like in our world, we can't force no one to even decide where to live. It is against our humanity's instinct. Even you wanted to say that if you live in here, that would be better for you. You're better closer to your friends, you're better closer to your work, you're closer to some of your family members. But some others said, no, you should live here. You must even much closer to your work and some other, but then you would be further away from your family or other friends. So how would then decide which part of the world you live? So I can understand from that part. but even to see more about the Hippogriff's culture, and especially those who lived either still remained in Sequestria and those who lived on Mount Eris. And even to see more about the Hippogriff culture was very much ritual and very much excited. Even to see more about the Hippogriffs, the science was just perfect. But it was sad that we were not able to see either Skystar or Queen Novo, especially Skystar, since he was so hyperactive character in front of the movie. I was very much, when I heard about this episode, I was actually looking forward to see Skystar. But, no. But, prior to that, I think this episode was very great. Probably one of the best so far in this episode, in this series. But if I had to give it a rating, I will give it, see, A minus. The song itself was very great. It was very good, actually. It was actually one of the songs we haven't seen, but since the Cutie Mark Crusaders, since Hearts and Hoops Day, actually. And I have to say, this is actually one of the best Cutie Mark Crusaders episodes which I have seen so far. And I'm really hoping for more of Cutie Mark Crusaders episodes in Season 8 and perhaps in Season 9. So, yeah. And since I gave this episode A minus as a rating, and I actually very much enjoyed this episode. It was very so much confusion, conflict, or decide mind conflict as a mind conflict for Terramar to decide which side if Hippogriffs on the Mount Eris or even Sequestria. Sometimes that kind of decision is very hard to decide. But I really very much enjoyed this episode, and it was very even to decide, but also to see the Cutie Mark Crusaders at Sea Ponies was, wow, great science. I was not expecting to see that, but yeah. And as always, this is Switch Album over and out.